Yes, it is. Right. We can start recording. Welcome, councillors, to the 30th of July meeting 2022. And we have some apologies. We have apologies from Councillor Pamela Story and for lateness to Nebone. Any other apologies received? That's the apologies. Can I have a mover for the apologies, please? Councillor Strange and Councillor Remington. Right. Stu Husband for early departure. Yeah. And also for Katarana Hodge. Yeah, so we'll have that. Thank you for that. I put those apologies be accepted. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, carried. Okay, so we have a confirmation of the agenda, and the agenda is circulated. Thank you, Russ. Seconded, Councillor White. All those in favour, please say aye. Just to note that the B recommendation for future proof will lie on the table and be addressed later in the meeting. And the other thing is for those online that are watching, there's a public excluded session which won't be reported into the open session unless it's resolved to do so. And the meeting may sit longer than 2 hours and may continue longer than 6 hours, but we hope that won't be the case, councillors. So with that, I now ask for disclosures of interest. Any disclosures of interest, please? There being none, we'll now move over to the Water Science Prize. And this is a prize which Council has been involved with since 1989. And today is the day that we will get that sound fixed up. Let's go to double up there. I think that's it. That's good. So the Water Science Prize is awarded annually to a student enrolled in the university who, in the year of the award, has shown outstanding ability in Faculty of Science and Engineering Level 3 courses dealing with water in the natural environment. Our recipient today and for this year, who will now share in the legacy of the prestigious award, is Lisa Speranskaria. The statement from recipient Lisa detailing her work is as follows. Now, would you like to join us at the table, Lisa? This is Lisa's statement of her work. Do you want to read this or shall I read it for you, Lisa? I can read.
Yeah, if you could read it, that would be lovely.
I can read
feel
it.
like I'll stop.
Thank you. I have much pleasure in reading it. This Lisa says, I'm currently working towards my master's degree in environmental science at the University of Waikato. For my thesis topic, I'm undertaking a year-long research project focusing on hydrology and carbon balances in Kupaiatai peat bog in the Hauraki. Kupaiatai. I've got to get the pronunciation right on that one. Has been shown to globally unusual peatland ecosystems due to the abundance of peat forming Empodisma robustum, which is able to conserve water exceptionally well by minimising evaporation rates. This enables the high water table and therefore the carbon sink function to be maintained year round, even in dry years. The research will build on our understanding of hydrology, which will be useful predicting the effects of climate change on peatland carbon sinks and for informing the restoration of drained peatlands. So with that, I have the absolute pleasure. Would you like to say a few words before we make a formal presentation, Lisa?
Yeah. I'd like to thank you first and foremost for having this award, and I feel very honoured to be here today.
And go a bit closer to the
microphone. A bit closer.
That's it.
Yeah, and I feel kind of my research will be absolutely paramount to, in the end, understanding how we can restore kind of most peatlands so that we can sequester more carbon and kind of like climate change in that way.
It's a very current topic, and I know a number of councillors around this table would be very interested to talk to you further about that. And this council, of course, takes a leadership role in these type of areas of work. So we're very pleased to be able to make this award today. So with that, I'm going to present the award. Those are always nice moments to see the future of people who can support the sort of work this organisation gets involved in. So thank you to Lisa. So we now move on to confirmation of council minutes. And on page 4, you'll find the minutes of the council of 9 June. So can I have a mover, please, of those minutes? Yes, Hugh Verco and Stu Husband, second. Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye.
Question.
Aye. Question first.
Sorry,
Yes,
Chair. Yeah,
sure.
as I had an apology to
Yes.
not attend on the strategy and policy with regards to page 27.
Yep.
The draft for the coastal plan, the consultative draft on the coastal plan that was approved by that committee under Section A, that has unfortunately bypassed council, but being Section A, I understand why. However, I have concerns that this draft plan that has gone out for circulation amongst strategic key partners has gone out to others, and it has not really got an adequate covering letter describing what we know as councillors as A-grade areas or areas of high biodiversity. And a lot of fishing groups and individuals seem to think that that's a reserve because it says that we're protecting them from disturbance. They think it is no fishing, no recreational activities, and it has really put a twist out there in building resentment as far as us managing the coastal marine area. So it has had a very negative impact, in my opinion, by the feedback that I've been getting in phone calls from horse riders to rod fishermen, and Sea Legacy is one who's mustering huge support to prevent councillors from interfering with the coastal marine area, including a National Party representative in the East Coast, who has also produced a lot of fake news, in my opinion, and it is quite detrimental to the good management of the coastal space. So I'm wanting to know how we can undo
So is
that.
this the council minutes or the Stratton policy you're commenting on?
Page 27.
Right, so Stratton poll.
And I do see there were councillors that voted against that.
Yes, that's what we're confirming whether the minutes are correct or not.
Right.
At this stage, rather than taking debate on what was in those minutes. So I take your comment, but at the appropriate time, and I think it'll come up later, I'll ask the director. Yes, I'll ask the director later to comment. So we'll just put to one side your comments, not to be forgotten about. We'll have the director address those at a later point. So we'll do that. So with that, we have the mover and the seconder. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, carried. Now the minutes of the 20th of June, which is on page 9. So I'll move. Seconder, Stu Husband. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, carried. The minutes of the 30th of June on page 12. I have a mover, is Councillor Katarana Hodge, seconded by, we have a seconder, who's there, Tipa Mahuta. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, carried. So we now go to committees reporting. And we have on page 23 the Stratton poll meeting. As Councillor Story is absent today, I'll ask Tipa Mahuta to comment, please. Right. So they're all Section A items on page 23, so there's nothing recommended. I will take any questions that anybody has of that meeting. Sure. Councillor Litchfield.
Yeah, what I just,
Yep.
out of turn, but.
Yeah, what you've just raised.
So I won't repeat it.
You're right, that's fine, thank you for that. Well, we have Councillor McPherson.
It's a Stratton poll committee minutes. The top of the pages, it says it's the Risk and Assurance Committee.
Right.
So it's confusing.
It caught me out too, I must say. So we're both caught out. So we'll take that correction. So they are definitely Stratton poll. So Tipa moves and you prepared this. Andrew McPherson seconds. All those in favour, please say aye. I will take the comment by Fred. There's another opportunity down the line to discuss that matter, or we'll do that now. I'll take the director, invite the director to the table to just deal with that matter that Fred has raised. Thank you, Fred.
Morning, councillors. Actually, I don't need to stand up with the new speaker system. So these are the minutes from the 8th of June. So on the 8th of June, the decision was made by the committee in accordance with your terms of reference to put the consultative draft out for feedback. So the document has no statutory rating. As we'd identified, it had been through 15 workshops with council. We also at the committee meeting on the 8th of June had a very good discussion, very deep discussion on biodiversity and the biodiversity options that we were putting out for consultation, and we developed an additional piece of communications material. Now, some of that information has been misunderstood, either purposefully or not, or for other means. This commonly occurs when you put out a draft plan. It is not something that I personally am worried about. We have had a number of opportunities to correct the misinformation, the most recent being Councillor Kneebone and Councillor Story both sending me emails in the last couple of days to get some information out to people. We had provided Councillor Tegg with information to share with the Coromandel community, and also distributed the information personally to some people who were putting out misinformation on their social media. We have received around 2,000 pro forma submissions. Similarly, I'm not fazed by that, because they are all pro forma submissions, and councillors will understand that when we are looking at submissions, it's not necessarily a numbers game, it is the strength of the submission. The entire purpose of putting out a consultative draft, and this is not a statutory requirement, it's a good practice requirement that staff recommended to council and council supported, is to have some of the conversations now so we can look at what those issues are, bring them back to the table for council's consideration prior to distributing the formal notified version. The team are just going through analysing all of the comments we have received. So as many comments as we've received, from what I understand, from our recreational fishing community, we have received from our commercial fishing community, and also folk who don't believe we've gone far enough in what they've seen in the draft plan, and that is always what we'll get. So it is our intention, as we've always signalled, to bring that back to council through a workshop on the 26th of August for council to understand the feedback that we have received.
Thank you,
I'm
Director.
happy to answer any questions,
Fine.
Mr. Chair.
Councillor White's first up.
Just a couple of things. I just thought that Councillor
You
Mahuta,
take that a bit closer, and just for the people online, if any.
Councillor Mahuta wasn't at the Strategy and Policy Committee, so I'm just,
Right.
so I just thought that, you know,
It
that
must
it should
in
be someone
different
else
meeting,
moving it.
second meeting.
And the other thing was just, although I understand I understand that the strategy and policy minutes, why they weren't at the council, the last council meeting. I was kind of surprised that it wasn't mentioned in our last council meeting, because the coastal plan review is such a significant thing. There was no presentation there, not even a small one. And I just wanted to get an answer, because the strategy and policy meeting was on the 8th of June, but the council meeting was on the 30th of June. Now, normally, if we've got the minutes within a week of something, it is in that council meeting that follows. Well, this is 2 weeks later. Why didn't we have any mention of the coastal plan review in the council meeting? So if somebody could respond to that, because I think it was a significant thing.
Thank you for that question. I'll ask Dave to respond. Dave? He's got the answer.
I don't know about that. What we tend to do is the minutes from the standing committees are presented month about. So the July, for example, the July meeting of council will have all of the minutes from June meetings. So it's calendar 1st of June to the end of June will appear at the July meeting. And this is just so we can present a full month worth of minutes to you at the following meeting. If we were to split it up and start presenting minutes, you know, ad hoc on whether they're ready or not, we then have to start preparing a table and keeping track of which minutes have gone to which meeting, and we run the risk of minutes and resolution being missed in that case. So it protects the integrity of the minutes as well.
So it's a full calendar month that we're trying to capture. Did you have a second part to your question, was about why it hasn't appeared as a council proposal? Yeah, Director, do you want to make a comment on that, Director May? Okay. I'll ask.
Thanks.
You've got it.
Thank you, councillor. That's right. Look,
Thanks.
there I fully acknowledge what Councillor White is saying. Unfortunately, there is no opportunity in the process to pop something out. I had asked at the time because I do think it is a fair amount of time between drinks, for lack of a better description. It is something that is within the terms of reference of the committee, so it didn't necessarily need to come to council. We can take on board for next time. It might be an information report. This training, most things that have come to council have been decisions reports, but we can take on board the concerns of councillors and put something up by way of a information report. But I understood in terms of, as Dave has outlined, it all comes through as part of the minutes, which is something new.
The councillors, for some time now, there has been a change where as that taking the last month's minutes and bring it kind of comes about because some committees are earlier in a month and later, and you start getting that sort of mishmash. I mean, have you had any particular views on it? Maybe at the council about it.
Councillor Teague.
Thanks, Chair. Look, I just wanted to follow up on Fred's comments relating to the process relating to this consultation. And on the one hand, I think it's a good thing that it happened because, as Tracy said, we've got a range of views back and feedback, so that's all good. My concern with it is that I think it was poorly done in the sense that there was a link in the web page in the document to the interactive map. And that interactive map showed no protected areas because we haven't decided on any, but it did show aquaculture areas and areas of high marine biodiversity. And people went to that map and thought that meant all these purple areas all around the Coromandel coast and on the west coast were in fact marine protected areas when there were no such thing. And so what we had was an element, as Tracy said, some malicious comment, but some genuine confusion about what this consultation was about. And I've seen the Facebook posts that people have made, and there clearly is a huge amount of confusion about it. And I think it was very unfortunate that that map was sort of used as part of this consultation relating to potential marine protected areas, because it's really caused a lot of confusion. And I think we have to think about that in the future and do better.
Thank you. Next up, Councillor Litchfield.
Just in response to my initial comments, I didn't actually have any recommendation or anything, but as a result, I actually would like to see council put out a proper media release clarifying exactly what Dennis has said with regards to what is out there. And I think that would nip a lot in the butt as far as nip in the bud, a lot of misreporting and building on fake news. Because it is very detrimental.
Thanks.
One more point too.
Before you do that, I'd like to get a bit of a view from council as to whether we should put out a press release on this matter. I think what we're hearing from staff is if council is of a mind to put out a press release on clarity, then we can do that. But I'd like to hear commentary first by those who feel this is a strong case, because I think if it's a strong case for clarification, it's probably appropriate. If it's a detailed matter, then it can be considered in the feedback that we get. So the question is, if it is quite significant, then we could consider asking staff to put out a press release. So just could I have any comment either for or against that? I'll just take a couple of views to see if I can get a flavour. Councillor Verco.
I thought this was a document that got delivered to selected people for comment before we go out for public
Correct.
consultation. If you go out with a press release now, you are saying to the world, you haven't seen this document, you
Correct.
weren't one of the selected few, but we would now like your views, in which case you are defeating the purpose of putting it out there and asking for comment. I just
Correct.
leave it go through the process and deal with it as it comes in.
Right. Thank you for that comment. Any other comments?
Submissions.
Yes, councillor White.
Yeah,
Just
I think
before you, I'll need to come back to you.
clearly there are people out there who have already gotten hold of it, regardless of whether they were stakeholders or not. And I think if there's confusion out there, we would be better to actually to clarify things for the sake of what is actually accurate. So that's my personal opinion. That yeah, if there's confusion out there, we would be better to actually
Thank you for that.
fix that.
I'll take councillor Teague and then I'll go to the director and then I'll come back to you, Fred, because I think we can have some clarity. Councillor Teague?
Yeah, I think initially the consultation was going out to selected stakeholders, but in fact it's been much more broadly communicated than that. So it's actually gone out to the general public, and it's certainly been widely distributed out there. And I've seen comment where people are suggesting that there'll be hundreds of marine reserves all around the Coromandel. That's the extent of the confusion. So I think it would be very useful.
So is social media giving that indication from your contacts over there as well?
Yeah, social media from fishing and other groups and
Right.
just community groups.
So thank you for that. I'll ask Director May to make a comment and then Fred, if you can just, I'll give you a second chance after that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Perhaps what I can suggest as a way forward is staff will be analysing the comment. And one good thing that has come from the last couple of months is the hits that we've seen on our coastal plan website for people who otherwise weren't aware that we were going through this process and are now wanting information and have jumped on the website. So what I would suggest is once staff have had an opportunity to absorb the information, that we can put an update on our coastal plan website that clarifies the situation and that gives an indication of where there has been misinformation. I do think a press release at the moment may be counterintuitive, but I also think we have a responsibility to clarify some of the confusion and some of the misinformation, and we can make that happen in the next couple of weeks.
So by going on the website, it does make it more public. Do you have a view about that as opposed to your schedule of consulting with parties prior to the public? Because as soon as you go on the website, that is public, of course.
It is, Mr. Chair, and I guess we had gone out for the targeted consultation. However, we know that there is a higher degree of interest now than what there has been previous. And a lot of these entities had not shown interest, even though we had made contact. And that is the value of a draft document.
Okay. Fred, a
Yeah,
short
look,
comment?
Again, on paragraph 3, on page 23, it says that further marine protection options be discussed with stakeholders and interested parties. Well, who is an interested party? Everybody. And it's great that that is out there. And I think it's excellent that we have now got buy-in from a whole lot of new people that are interested in this. But I think the simple thing that we need to say is we have not even noted one new marine reserve within our region.
Thanks.
And that's it.
Yep. So there's a point that it's in the minutes here, so it brings it to the attention of people. So with that, I'll ask for sum up. Is there any other councillors? Yes, we have Councillor Nicol.
No, just briefly. Yeah, I remember when the storm hit on social media quite a number of weeks ago. I think if there was a media release, it should have been done back then. And I'm disappointed that we're not more proactive in that sense. To do it now, I think, is putting it out there when. However, if the storm is on social media as opposed to in the newsprint as such, then I think updating the website and having our comms team put out a social media post that can be shared on social media to say that that information has been added would be the kind of thing that I could see helping with the situation. My 2 cents. But yeah, really disappointing when we don't have, when we have the confusion come up in the first place.
Thanks, Councillor Nicol. I'll have the CEO just sum up with a series of actions from this discussion. CEO.
Yeah, thank you. I think if I reflect back to a council discussion at a point previously, I think you were keen to go out with a coastal plan that had a fairly high bar. And I think that in doing that has probably spurned a lot of interest, and maybe there's a bit of misunderstanding about what some of the terms mean. But I think what we've heard Tracy say is that there's a step in the process that's coming up, which would be a nice step to try and put some of the clarification out. In the sense of, there is no proposed marine reserves, and it is just we will be going out seeking feedback on what people think about that. That's a step that Tracy, I'm looking just in the next 2 weeks, we could do that. Yep.
So the action point is we're going to take some steps with respect to our website, correct? And is that correct? Am I reading this correctly?
So, Mr. Chair, if I can just clarify, so effectively the engagement period that we gave people finishes today. So I think it would be useful to go out with some analysis of that. It'll take the team probably a week to do a quick review. I'm not here next week, and I wouldn't like any of the staff to have to deal with some of the feedback that may come back. So I'd be more than happy for it to happen while I'm on annual leave, but that might be a bit cute. So I'm suggesting takes a couple of weeks, and something of the week of the 8th of August, we can have an update on the website, and if we do think it's media worthy, then pop something out.
So I want to get it clear as to what the action points are to be included in this minutes from this meeting. So I'll ask for some clear, succinct steps that the CEO will step out, regardless of your necessary leave. And I've got to say, it's absolutely appropriate our director take some leave. But with that, we should make clear points that the CEO is going to sum up as to what will include as action points from this discussion. Thank you.
Look, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the key action point is that there has been a period of consultation that closes today. We need some time to be able to analyse the responses and think of appropriate responses ourselves. And so within the next fortnight, we'll be looking at updating information on our website to clarify what some of the thinking of council was in putting out the draft plan in the way we have.
Thank you, CEO. I'll wrap this up. Have you got a
Just have a question.
Councillor White? I'll take a question, yes.
It is just a question. So in terms of what Councillor Tegg has raised in terms of the confusion,
yep.
I just have a question around if we're at the end of this consultation phase with the stakeholders, so today's the last day, I think you said, are we at risk? I suppose what I'm trying to say is that the information that is the source of the confusion, is there going to be a problem in terms of the submissions that we receive from the stakeholders? Are they not going to have had the right information to be able to do a valid submission? Because I am concerned about potential for judicial review of things if the process is not good. So I'd like that question answered.
Councillor May, would you like to comment on that question? Director May, sorry, just about a councillor, almost moving up. We all know that. No, she did. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Firstly, we will, just want to give councillors the comfort that we will not be in any way exposed by way of judicial review. This is entirely informal good practice consultation. The only formal consultation we require where things are formal submissions and not comments that we've received thus far will be when we notify the plan. So acknowledge the concern, but I do just want to give you the comfort that this in no way exposes us to a judicial review. We have corrected as far as we have been able to make the reference in the plans clearer when Councillor Tegg identified it for us, but there will still be some comments that we receive that may be confused. And what we will do is, with those people who provided those comments, make sure we send communications to them so that the matter is cleared up for them.
Thank you, Director May, for clarifying that. I've moved this and Andrew McPherson seconded. All those in favour, please
Could I
say
just-
yes. Sure.
So in support of the report and the go forward,
Yep.
the new normal, just with, I guess, everywhere I'm seeing, is that explaining is losing. Explaining to an audience, you've already lost the audience, and that's across all electorships, doesn't even matter if it's council or anywhere else. So just by way of support of that, to improve the next stage, could staff give thought about webinars, interactive webinars, so those who are most interested can speak into a space, because that is the new town hall
Yes.
at the right time in the process, Tracy. If that's the way people like to engage these days, just for fullness, and I think we should adopt that more, because you've got to go through 5 layers of our website to get to the bit you're interested in.
Thank
So,
you, Councillor
thank you.
Mahuta. I think that's some wise words to consider. Thank you for that. I now put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, carried. Okay, page 31, which is the Climate Action Committee. Councillor Nicol.
Yep, I'm happy to just go over. It was all section A. Key points were the biggest project underway at the moment is the local climate change risk assessment, and that is should be wrapping up phase 1 soon and going into phase 2. Part of that is also that we have developed a climate change adaptation guideline, and I think that's quite cool for our external stakeholders, because there's a multitude of advice out there on how to do risk assessments and adaptation. And so what we've really provided here is a way to pull it all together in the local Waikato context as well, which I hope will be helpful to everyone who's working on that, whether they're in business or councils and otherwise. And the rest of them were more updates, like the fact the National Emission Reduction Plan has come out, how our in-house emission reduction are going, and the just activity updates really. So
Thank you.
Seconded.
Seconded by Councillor Liddisworth. They're all section A items. All those in favour, please say aye. You want to comment?
I just wanted to check whether
Councillor.
something's recorded correctly in
Yes.
the minutes, and that was just page 33, where it's got the apologies at the meeting. It says that the apologies of councillors Fred Litchvark, Tuka Mahuta and Barry Quayle for a brief absence.
Yeah.
But then up the top, it's got that Tuka was only here for 11 minutes. So I'm just wondering if something was wrong there, was recorded incorrectly.
Yes, yes.
Oh, I see.
Is that, I'll
Yeah.
just check with Dave as to whether that's accurately reporting. Is that
Brief
accurately
absence.
reporting it?
The timestamp from the meeting report.
Yep.
So
Thank you.
Mm.
Thank you for that question.
The one.
All right,
Yeah.
sure.
So
Sure.
for clarification, it was
Yes.
for absence, but I did try and attend.
Yes.
For those who are interested in my time, I've been setting up a small health authority, but Kate Pai, that's noted, for everybody in New Zealand. But I just wanted to ask Councillor Nicol, because we had the benefit of hearing what other councils are doing in climate change at Local Government New Zealand conference. And I just wanted to ask if you thought we were, again, we think we're leading the charge, but from what I've heard, we might be middle of the pack. So be keen to hear maybe at a future council meeting what else you learned from that process, noting that other councils are doing some really neat things in climate.
yeah, absolutely. I was at that at the conference hearing about that. So it's something I've been aware of for about a year or so. So we were obviously the first climate action committee that was set up, which is really, really cool. But then over that first year of this triennium, plenty of other councils thought that was a great idea too, and so they've set up some as well. And obviously there are different setups, and relationships and things, and in various regions. So some of them that are quite cool are where it's kind of like the Mural Forum tends to then take the lead on it, and that's their climate action discussion space. I think that's quite cool, and a lot of co-governance happening as well, which yeah, or whatever you want to call it. And so I think I've actually got in mind to bring to the last Climate Action Committee meeting of this triennium a chair's report on some of those reflections, and then that can be considered by the new council when they figure out what they want to do with committees next year, just as a reflective piece, and obviously asking committee members for their thoughts, that can be on the record as well.
Thank you.
Thanks for that. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Nicol. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, carried. Now we move over to page 36, the Waikato Rapatu River Trust. I had the pleasure of attending my first meeting there, so I'd like to just recognise that I found it quite valuable to have that connection to that committee. Any comments from Tipper, who's been a long-standing, and any other members in relation to that? There, before I put that, I'm happy to move, by the way. So
for that one, it was probably just the MP's freshwater consultation, and the whole point I've been raising at council that we have an existing vision and strategy for this catchment that speaks to mana o te awa, and that not be lost in the mana o te awa conversation. It should be and rather than either or, yes, the purposes of this catchment. And I think from a reflection at the river, that one, and feedback from other iwi who are in JMAs with us, I think the new council, this council should commission a report about, I guess, give a true reflection of where we're up to with the JMA, so the new council can lever off that. Good rather comment. Rather than just start cup by cup of teaing again, because iwi will be the mature partner when we go across. They'll all still hold mandate, and depending on who goes in as council, they'll be the new elements. So just a way to advantage those relationships. It doesn't take a year to warm it up.
Good comment. Would you like to second that? Yeah. Do we have a second there? Any other? Oh yes, Councillor Nicol.
Just comment. It was a really good presentation. Impact of the Raupatu, and there was a good discussion around how that can be captured, so that we don't have to present that multiple times. We can present that to whether it's our staff or new councillors in a way that's recorded, so that it's an efficient use of time to still get that out. So yeah, it was a good meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Nicol. I'll put that motion. All those favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, carried. Councillors, and we move on to Regional Connections Committee on page 42. Councillor Strange.
Thank you, Chair Barry. Yes, we had the Regional Connections Committee way back in June. Most of what was discussed has actually, in a way, already come to full council last time with the draft PTP, which is currently out for public consultation, closing tonight at 5 p.m. So far, we've had 166 responses, which is a pretty good indication of the level of interest within the region. Yeah, and we've got hearings coming up 16th of August. Within the meeting, most of the business was self-explanatory in the minutes. In regards to Huia, we've had fantastic patronage growth. It's just increasing month by month, and with each journey being carbon neutral at the moment. Yes, that's fantastic. We've also had confirmation from central government that half price PT is continuing to the end of January, which is really going to help ease the cost of living for people in our region. And it's also has that knock-on effect of boosting our patronage and, yeah, really giving people good options with transport around the region. So, yeah, happy to move those minutes.
I've just made a slight alteration to reflect your comments about, the process of time. We'll
Yep.
put in the word notes rather than recommends because, we can't be in the process further down the track than we've actually achieved. We've actually moved quicker than it coming to council. So we've just made a small adjustment in that recommendation, which is changing word to notes. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Tegg. That's the section A and the section B, which is being commented on now. So put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, carried. So we're now moving on to the page 53, which is Risk and Assurance Committee. And I'll invite Councillor McPherson to speak to this item. Page 53. These are all, as I understand it, section A items. Check.
Yeah, they are, Chair.
Yep.
They're all
So
section A items.
if there's
There are no-
any, yes, they're all section A.
There are no
Noted
section
that.
B.
No
Yeah.
section B. Is there anything you would like to raise that came to that you think should
I'll just
come to the
draw the
attention?
council's attention to the fact that there's continual vigilance on annual leave management.
Good comment.
Especially from a wellbeing and health and safety point of view, that committee is being vigilant and it gets a regular going over, so the council can take some comfort.
There's evidence, I think we're seeing our ELT, one of our members going on leave shortly, so that's very good. So thank you for that. So you'll move that and I'll second. All those in
Can I just
favour,
ask a
please.
question?
Oh, yes, question. Sorry, missed you,
That's
Councillor
right.
White.
I was a bit late to hitting my light.
Right.
I just wanted to know, I wasn't at the meeting, but I just wondered if there's anything you can tell us about the independent quality assurance report for Project Reboot. Okay, can you tell us anything about how that's going?
I'll ask the CEO to comment on that.
Actually, I might refer to Janine Becker to make a comment on it in terms of what the company commented on at the Risk and Assurance.
Janine.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I would probably strongly recommend all councillors actually take the opportunity to read the report that was part of that agenda. I think it was a very full and frank assessment of the project. If I picked out some key points from that, the report noted that there were good project management disciplines in place across the project. It acknowledged that the project or the solution that council is implementing is different from what we anticipated it was when we first went into this project, and so that's had consequences in terms of the way that it has been deployed. But there was nothing to suggest that the solution wouldn't deliver what was anticipated in terms of functionality to support the operations of council. It did very clearly call out that in order to successfully deliver the remainder of the project, that would require more time. And so we had discussion in the committee around what that is likely to look at. And the report noted that additional time would obviously have a financial impact to it as well. So it's those latter 2 points that staff are still working through with Infor and with the Chief Executive as well, with the intent of bringing something back to Council at the end of August for a decision. But yeah, I would very strongly recommend those that have an interest in the project to have a read of that report. It's the IQANZ did a very, very good job, in my opinion, and we will be continuing to engage with them through the duration of the project and checking in around key assumptions, key processes, key risks.
Thank you, Janine. We have a mover and a seconder. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, carried. So we now move on to future proof, page 61. Now there is section A and section B item. Because it affects, the section B item is a particular area of work that Councillor Strange is involved with. I'd like her to comment on particularly section B, but anything in section A that she wishes to comment on. Councillor Strange.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, could you just clarify which parts you wanted me to speak on again?
On page 62, there's a section B item recommended to council. I've got my pages right.
Just note that it's struck through on the screen.
Oh, okay, that's right. That's yes, I've just had correction. It's lying on the table until a later point. Yeah, 8.3. So we're leaving section just on that page 62. That section B item is being left until later in the meeting. So we're only dealing with the items which is section A. Thank you. But do you want to comment on anything in section A at all?
Yes. Yeah, the Hamilton Waikato Metro Spatial Plan Transport Business Case. For those who did attend the workshop recently, was a really good way to keep up to speed with what is happening in the PT space in the Metro sub-region. Yeah, it aligns really well with our PT plan and the GPS on transport. So yeah, it's really consistent with where we're heading. And of course, we have the support of our local councils within the metro area as well. So yeah, it was a good workshop to attend, and thank you to those who did attend.
Thank you. Would you like to move that?
Yes, happy to move.
And I'll second. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye, carried. So we move on to page 69, which is the Napa Committee meeting of 22nd of June. Kathy. Councillor White.
Yeah, happy to move this. I don't think there was anything in that meeting that I particularly need to highlight to you, but happy to take any questions.
Any questions, comments? Looking good. Would you like to move, Kathy, and seconded by Councillor Husband? Yep. All those in favour, please say aye. Were you in attendance?
He wasn't there.
All right.
How are you going to give us?
Oh, you're only receiving those, so you don't have to be.
Just received.
So
Nothing
I'll
else.
rule at 6.
That's fine.
Still keep with that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, carried. So we're now down to ordinary business, page 74. How are we going? Yep, that's all right. So page 74, which is the report, health and safety. Nick, or no, it's not Nick. You're going to kick it off? You'll kick it off. Director Williams is going to hold the fort, and as he eloquently does, fill the space.
Yeah, so apologies on Nick's behalf. He's only a minute away. He's in the middle of negotiations with one of our unions at the moment, so it's normal business for him, but he's got to obviously work around their priorities as well, but he's only a moment away. The report is the standard report that you're now well and truly familiar with. Of highlight from my perspective at least are that we're entering into the new calendar, a new financial year, and so it's an opportunity to reset some of the priorities from a health and safety perspective What you'll note in the report also is that we have managed to increase through a campaign, a targeted campaign, the near miss reporting, which was a focus area and one of the priorities for council. So that uptake is, there's a bit of an uptake in reporting in that regard as a result of the campaign that's been launched and led strongly by the Chief Executive. So we're very pleased with that outcome. You'll also note that of the impacts of COVID are still resonating around our organisation. We still have staff reporting on a regular basis that they are contracting the virus, but we have good controls and measures in place. So in saying that, I'll hand over to the man himself.
Welcome, Nick. Catching up a bit there, but welcome to the meeting.
Thank you very much. Apologies for slight lateness. I was in bargaining with our unions today, so I've just popped out from the bargaining session.
Yes.
They're making me work right to the end, yep. So in terms of the health and safety report, there are a few topics I'd like to briefly draw the attention of council to. I think as I entered the room, Nev was talking through some of the response we're doing with COVID at the moment. Our focus has really been reiterating core messages around hygiene and safety, personal safety through the pandemic. And one of the key aspects of that, of course, has been not attending work, a very similar message, simple message, not attending work while exhibiting cold or flu-like symptoms. In terms of our actual numbers, we continue to see relatively moderate numbers of staff reporting COVID infections. At the moment, we're averaging around 7 per week, which is the average over the last 10 weeks, which is quite a moderate level. We had one peak of 14 in 1 week, which followed actually a number of staff attending a social event outside work together, where we saw the one peak come through. Beyond that, we are seeing flu numbers, the more typical flu season numbers coming through over winter. And those numbers are showing, as I think the data in the report demonstrates, quite significant rates of flu in the community as well. So in terms of overall absenteeism, we're tracking certainly higher than both 2021 and 2020. Of course, both those years being heavily influenced by the lockdowns. But we're not at the higher levels we saw in 2019, which is when we saw a previous quite a strong flu season that year. So we feel like we're doing reasonably well actually with managing that risk at the moment. Onto risk, we've been focusing really on the risk reviews. The psychological safety has been a key focus in recent months. We've got a paper due to go into our executive next week that will describe that work and talk about some of the measures and results from the bow tie analysis we've done. At a high level, that bow tie work really shows we've got a number of very strong barriers in place already around the risk of mental health, psychological health at work. And we've got a number of great, I think appropriate measures in place to support where that risk may be experienced. We've done that work through quite a consultative process, a lot of staff involvement, which we think is really important for the risk of psychological wellbeing at work. We've also used the ISO 45003 standard, which is quite an up-to-date standard released to support organisations working through that risk analysis work. And what we've also observed is our culture model, how culture works, applying the causal factors from that model has been equally a strength in terms of working through psychological safety at work. So the work we'll take to the executive next week will outline the sort of evaluation outcomes of psychological wellbeing and talk to some of the action plans that will support that going forward. Very briefly, in terms of reporting, no serious harm events were reported during June. We did see a number of property damage reports come through in the report this month. I went through those. So they're predominantly quite minor events, scratches to vehicles, damage in terms of knocking into things generally, and sort of small repair jobs being required. So nothing there of any significance or trends that came through. We've also done a bit of work in terms of the health and safety team around the assessment schedule for 2022, which we've included in the report. You may have picked up the word second line of defence, and I thought I might just spend a moment talking to what that actually means. In terms of the health and safety framework we have, our first line of defence is really the operational work that our managers lead, so how they manage work safely on a day-to-day basis. And of course, ensuring that our staff and managers have the right skills and knowledge is our first line of defence to safety. The second line, which is referred to in the assurance reporting, is the oversight that the health and safety function leads to ensure that we have the right processes and policies in place and that they're being followed. And so the second line of defence assurance that we'll be doing during the year will be checking the application of those policies in the field and in the application on the job. The third line, which is the other level of layer of defence we have, is external auditing, which we also do from time to time. So finally, I guess I'd note too, there's a couple of corrections I picked up when I went through the preparation for council today. On page 81, it talks to councillors in attendance. On paragraph 46, this is, and who were briefed around the new flip charts. You might remember Dave doing our flight attendance moment at the beginning of the meeting. That was the induction to the, introduction to the flip chart work that we've been doing. And we had 12 councillors in attendance at that time, so I'll make that correction to that table to capture that number. We've also had some feedback around the vehicle crash control. It refers to encouraging the use of communication technology to eliminate the risk associated with vehicle incidents. And just we'll clarify that wording to ensure it's clear. That's talking about using things like Zoom and Teams instead of travelling at all, so thereby eliminating the risk of travel. And I think there's a minor correction to the text too on page paragraph 52, which reads, over the last 2 months, there have been an increase in reporting. We've got an extra D in the word increase, so we'll remove that too. So a few corrections there just to note, and I'll stop talking now and leave that to any questions.
I'm sure councillors won't let you off leaving your last meeting of council without some questions. Councillor Strange.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you, Nick, for the report. I just had 3 questions. Just in regards to the flu vaccinations, it says 44.7% of staff took up the vaccinations this year. I was just wondering the pattern of vaccination staff levels over the past years. It's good to see that table with the flu tracking database. I just wondered if we could have maybe the vaccinations alongside that, just to see if there's any corresponding information. Yep. That's the word. Thank you. And it's really good to see the road safety awareness there as well. So yeah, thank you to the team for picking up on that. And just lastly, the event reports. Just wondering, I know I've mentioned previously about noting whether these things happen in the offices or if they happen at home. Just specifically in regards to the ergonomics, you know, if people do have the right office equipment at home, so they're not getting that discomfort and pain, and just with staff turnover, whether, you know, office equipment at home is being offered to our new staff members as well.
Yeah. Yeah, well, in terms of the ergonomic reporting, I don't know from that particular report whether that was a home-based or workplace, but we can check that one. We give all staff allocated their own keyboard and mouse when they begin employment, and the Surface Pro. So we've got some confidence that they've got the core equipment they need. And then we also ask staff to provide a photo which shows us what their home-based work environment is, and that allows us just to validate really that it's suitable for work. And then, of course, if there are concerns, we work with the people directly over any steps they might need to take to ensure their workplace is appropriate.
That sounds quite robust. So thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
And yeah, thank you for your work, and I wish you all the best in the future. So. Thank you.
Councillor Mahuta.
Tuatahi nei la mihi atu ki a koe mo te ai a koe mo te kaunihira. Me te mihi hoki i a koe whakawate ana i tō tūranga. So that's just, again, respect to you. I've been here since you started.
Yep.
Happy to be here and say thank you for all the work you've done. And I've really only got 2 questions now that we're looking at the psychological well-being of our staff, because it was more the things we could see clearly and report on. And noting the great work councillors doing in terms of the wānanga we're about to have. I think you call it the elimination of bias now.
Yep.
The R word isn't said, so I'll talk about that. But do we have processes, if we're dealing with it at a governance level, do we have clear processes within, I guess, for our 300 plus staff if it does occur there, and how are they looked after, noting that there are a lot of programs in many government departments and agencies now to recognise that and be able to speak up to it and speak into it in a proactive way. So interested, we may not have got to that yet, but I'm just tabling it now. If we're just addressing it here, and I'm not saying it's inherent in our staff, but are there good processes? Should it be something they encounter too in the workplace?
Yeah, great question, and thank you for your acknowledgement too. Yeah, we do a lot of work over the general protocols you expect to ensure, things like our responsibilities to have a level playing field, free of bias for how we recruit, develop, promote staff. We take that quite seriously, but we are expecting to get a number of recommendations coming through for the cultural competency work currently underway. And I suspect that will evolve into another stage of work that we'll need to deploy. So we're looking forward to really getting clarity about where to focus best effect.
And I just note the Papa Pounamu guide that is being offered to the public service as a way forward.
Thank you.
Councillor Remington.
Barry, it'll be your role to formally thank Nick. I'd just like to say also, Nick, thank you for your highly professional way in which you've presented to this council over the years I've been here. I compliment you on is you don't rise to debate when persons put tricky questions to you. You know your subject extremely well. Yeah. You've got, and rightly so, you've got 14 experts around here that some know a lot more than you. But again, you kind of handle that extremely well and never in a smart-ass response. Finally, may I just say that particularly in 401 Grey Street, I mean, it was a round warren. It looked to me, it was not fit for purpose would be an understatement, but you managed to actually keep a large number of persons reasonably happy, probably over 300 in that shocking premises that have grown like a mushroom. Well done. The only comment I'd make is to your successor is please, I know the health and well-being, we often just think psychological and physical, but also this country is going through a massive meltdown. We've got, whether it be the mega mergers that are proving to be disastrous, whether it be health or whether it be education. You've just seen what's happening in the Polytech and in those areas. One might say, well, how does that affect council? Yes, many of us have partners, and it does affect the and psychological well-being of our partners as well. But last but not least, of course, is the Kiwi Saver and how it affects your staff, our staff's sector major asset. And I think that often I can ask you to perhaps brief and go through this, Chris, get Craig Investment, something like that, to say, hey, this is where it's going, this is where it could come. You haven't got a silver ball, but often it does give a little reassurance to persons seeking the biggest assets. Once again, thank you very much. You've been a pleasure to work with, Nick. I wish you well in your future. Well, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Remington. Councillor Nicol. Councillor White, sorry, then Councillor Nicol.
Yeah, I also want to thank you, Nick. You've actually always consistently delivered great information.
Bring your speaker a bit closer.
Yeah. Great information to us. You're not reactive. You've got a calm manner. I really appreciate you taking, difficult questions sometimes and managing them really well. I just had a follow-on question from Councillor Strange's question, and that was just to do with the flu vaccine. Do you have any data yet from the second offer of the flu vaccine? So we had 44% from the first one in May, and yes, do you know whether that's consistent with previous years, as Councillor Strange asked, but also do we have the data yet for the new offer to staff? Have we got an update?
Yes, we do. We had an additional, it closes actually today, so there might be a few more that come in late, but we had 21 staff that accessed the offer of a voucher for vaccine late. And we're cutting it off this Friday, partly because of the evidence suggests that if we're taking the vaccine later than that, it reduces its efficiency, I guess, in reducing risk to people. In terms of how it compares to previous years, it's pretty similar to what we had last year in terms of overall rates. We usually hover between 45 to 50% of staff that take up the offer. We've seen a slight uptake over the last couple of years than what we used to get, but probably not notable. But we do suspect actually that our numbers don't include those who access the vaccine for flu very early in the year, being vulnerable people or others that may have access before the general public. So we don't have data about how many people will fall into that category. So there might be a hidden proportion in addition to that 44% that we reported.
Thank you. Next speaker is actually Councillor McPherson, then Councillor Nicholl.
Yes, I'd like to mirror the comments made by my colleagues. I think as a health and safety practitioner, this council is blessed by having a man of your talents, and you will be leaving under that chair there some very big boots to fill. So thank you for that. Specifically building on what Councillor Remington said, I think a measure of you is the calibre of people you've put around you, and you've been very, very responsive with things like bow tie analysis, which I think will take this organisation to a new level of understanding around health and safety. Having said that, I'd now like to raise a couple of points. The first is the highlight for me of the Local Government New Zealand conference was the plenary session closing where Dr. Lucy Hone of the New Zealand Institute of Wellbeing and Resilience spoke. And for anyone who listened in or who was in the room, this is a woman who deals in wellbeing and resilience, who had to suffer the fate of losing a 12-year-old daughter and her friend's mother in a motor vehicle accident. You could have heard a pin drop in that seminar. And I think it would be relevant and useful for this organisation to get a hold of Lucy Hone's presentation. She used very good infographics, and there's some stuff we can learn from her presentation. Now to get a bit more granular with your report, I noticed you say in your report that you are doing some work on road safety awareness. Can I just ask, what action have you taken with our staff, especially the cyclists, as a result of the fatal cycling accident not 100 metres down the road from our organisation? What insights have you taken from that? What changes have you put in place? That's the first question, Chair. Second question is, Director Williams used the word significance of the uptake in near miss reporting. The way I read the report, we had 2 near misses for an organisation of this size. Doesn't seem like much of an uptake. And, I think as we have been religious around measuring and monitoring annual leave entitlements, so too we should with near miss. And I know, Chris, you've done a great job of bringing the awareness of near miss reporting, but it's not just one of those things where you have a campaign and then forget about it. It's as important to this organisation as a leading indicator as management of annual leave or any other thing that we do, and it tends to fall off the radar. So I applaud you for the focus you've put, but what I'm saying is let's not just let it slip off the agenda. So I guess my question is, as a result of the accident down the road, what have you done differently?
Yeah, so we've been working with our road safety team really to ensure we have a thoughtful approach on how to support safety for our people coming to and from the building. That includes actually driver education, so our drivers are aware and understand the dangers they pose and the rules they need to follow to support safe cyclists in the city. So we're working with our road safety team to do training preparation and deliver training for the organisation on those 2 topics, both cycle safety and the safety equivalent, I guess, for our drivers. In addition to the alerts we did at the time of the incident itself, of course. So we think that's the right approach. We have people coming to and from who cycle and are very able and competent cyclists, and we've got others that will benefit from support. So we're working to help those people. In terms of the near miss reporting, A few thoughts on that. One of which is we do see more reporting come through as near miss reports. Our health and safety team then categorise as event reporting. So staff are reporting at high numbers, but when we look at it, we decide actually that should be more correctly considered to be an event. So the numbers that we see coming into the team are higher. Secondly, I'd note too that we're not by the nature of our work, we're not a high risk organisation in terms of many of the activities that we do. And so we think near miss reporting is a really important metric, but we also think a number of the assurance steps that I described through the assurance schedule that we've reported are equally important to ensure that we've got safety systems in place. And I know talking to our health and safety colleagues, they make the observation relative to our unitary councils, for example, that nature of our work is quite different to those. And so the numbers won't be the same or comparable.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Nick. I won't repeat much of what's been said, but thank you. Thank you for also the work on how we changed the reports many years ago and just how responsive you are, the road safety piece right in there after we raised it last month. I suppose it's more for Chris really, but all the work that you've done with the team on the psychological risk bow tie, I think that'd be a really cool one for the new council to see as an example of what bow ties are. It's such a applicable topic. So yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councillor Nicol. My comments are, when you enter an organisation, one of the key things you want to do in a nutshell is make a real difference and for the better. And I think Nick can leave this organisation knowing he's done that. When I came into this organisation, we saw the evolution of, under Nick's reign, of human resource going to people and capability. And Nick has truly grasped that and he's taken that forward. So it's no longer an HR role. It is taking our whole organisation onto a much more capable team approach and working with the people to improve their health and safety across the whole thing. So it's a much wider sphere of responsibility. And from where councillors sit, you can see the admiration that they have and the respect they have for your work and for the reports you've presented and the fact that they engage so eloquently on your report and evaluate it speaks to your ability and the recognition that you're doing some really important work. So I'd like you to take away that this council has, is really pleased that you are able to take another step in your career. You're going up a step, not just sideways. It is actually a true promotion and you have my full support. With that, I'd like to invite the CEO to make some comments.
Yeah, no, thank you. Actually, councillors, you've probably reflected some of the comments that I'd like to acknowledge of Nick. I've certainly been on the executive when he came in, and I've seen that same transformation that a number of you have just referred to. And he has step changed our organisation, taking it from being a sort of a human resource function into it's truly about our people and their capability. I think some of the culture work that's come through, he's brought through, as some of you reflected, a very good team around him. And they've done some really good stuff to for our organisation to lift us to a level that we can all be proud of. I think also a thing he's done, he's managed to get you engaged in health and safety. Gosh, we've spent the last 20 minutes or so talking about health and safety. I think it's a wonderful thing. I think it's great for our staff to see the culture that you're setting in terms of the interest in health and safety. And I'm pleased that the reports that we're getting through, and thanks Nick, we had to get there, but it's been able to hit the mark in terms of the type of things you're able to see so you can ask your questions and make your comments. And I just want to acknowledge too, Nick, in front of the councillors, the way that the very respectful and humble and very communicative way you respond to their questions and respond to follow-ups. It's always done. So look, I just wanted to acknowledge that. One of the big things, of course, he changed our way of working when we came into this building. We don't have paper all around us anymore. Staff don't have their individual desks. We had to move into the city. There's a lot of reticence to what we're coming to. Nick led a whole work stream on how we're going to work and how that's going to change, and had those things in place. So when we moved in, it all sort of worked from day one. And I think that's a massive, massive achievement that often goes sort of not unnoticed, but not always fully appreciated the effort that went into that. So I think that's one of the things, Nick, just wanted to acknowledge in front of councillors that you've achieved. And a bit of a promo, if any of you need fast broadband at home, he's going to Tuatahi Fast Fibre, Ultra Fast, I think they used to be called. They dropped the Ultra bit. But anyway, that's where he's going with a wider focus of not just a people type of function. He's broadening his focus as well, so which is pretty cool. Just one health and safety matter, if I can just bring to your attention. We've been raising the staff, and that's when you drive, particularly out of our building and get to a footpath. There's a yellow line at the top. It is a stop. You do need to stop, and it's just because the visibility isn't brilliant especially when you turn left. But pedestrians will often see the car coming, so it just gives an opportunity to know that it is going to stop for them as you walk across. So I just bring that to your attention. But thank you.
Thank you,
Chair.
Thank you, Nick, and all the best, and keep in touch. I think that would be appropriate. So with that, I have much pleasure in moving this report. Do I have a seconder? Andrew, second. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, carried. Right, we're now going to take a recess for morning tea, and then we come back for a workshop. And for those online, we will be back around about 1 o'clock, 1 p.m. roughly. So we're now adjourned. Thank you.
Councillors, just so you're aware, some people